Over the years, our kids have had a lot of illnesses. 6 kids means a lot of childhood sniffles and coughs. And when our kids weren't feeling well, it affected our entire home. Luckily, some clever guys in Brisbane have come up with the perfect solution: Rehydrate.
Rehydrate are delicious drinks that rehydrate up to 3 times faster than water alone, packed with essential electrolytes. Rehydrate is one of the few rehydration products that is safe for all ages. Stock up at Coles and be prepared whenever illness strikes.
It's a Happy Families podcast with Dr. Justin Coulson. We're Luke and Susie, parents of 3 little boys, and this is the podcast for those of us who are time-poor parents who just want answers now.
It's an interesting statement that Dr. Justin Coulson has written to me recently. It was this: punishing our kids makes them more selfish. Which is interesting because sometimes we're punishing them for being selfish.
Well, how does that work?
I don't know.
How are we supposed to do this parenting gig?
I don't know.
Where was this?
Dr. Justin Coulson from happyfamilies.com.au. Loads and loads of resources available to support us parents on that website. I encourage you to go there. But you're in the room with us now, Dr. Justin, to talk about this whole idea of punishing our kids, making them more selfish.
Yeah, isn't that curious?
It really is.
You know, the kids are fighting with each other, or maybe they've stolen something from the shop down the road, you know, when 5-year-olds decide that piece of chocolate looks too good. And what do we do as parents? The most common form of discipline in Australia, in spite of my very best efforts to change this, is that we punish our kids. And I was reading some research fairly recently and considering what goes on in the mind of a child when they're punished, and it occurred to me, the more we punish our kids, the more selfish they are. I'll give you an example. So I'm a 14-year-old boy, and I grew up in a home. So I mean, I'm 14, right? So it's the 1980s, and I've grown up in a home where we're not allowed to watch Neighbours or Home and Away or The Simpsons because of all the bad attitude that's there. You know, we
too much sass.
Too much sass. And my sister says something that ticks me off, and I look at her and say, "Karina, you're such an idiot." I'm sorry for using that word, but you know, I called her an idiot. And my mum comes storming into the kitchen and she says, "We don't speak like that in this house. You need to say sorry, Justin." I take a deep breath. I look at my sister and I say, "Fine, Karina, I'm sorry you're an idiot." and so Mum sends me to my room. She says, "That's it. Go to your room and you think about what you've done. We don't speak like that." And so I went to my bedroom, and as you can imagine, 14-year-old boy sent to his room by his mum. I sit on my bed and I think to myself, you know, Mum's right. I needed this time away from my family to think, to regroup.
Yeah.
I'm an impediment to my family's well-being. I'm an impediment to our family's happiness.
Yeah.
I've not been a good brother. And because I've had this opportunity to sit in my room, I'm going to be a better human being when I leave.
Wonderful
It
reflection.
happens every time.
Every time. No teenager or no child ever. You know, Super Nanny and the whole naughty corner thing was the stupidest. Anyway, you know what I did? I sat in my room and I got selfish. I'd been punished. And who did I think about while I was in my room? I thought about me. I thought about how unfair the world was. I thought about how my mum doesn't understand and how upset I was at her. And then I did think about my sister, but I thought about what I was going to do to her when I got out of the bedroom and Mum wasn't watching. You know, Mum said, "Don't you ever let me catch you doing that again." And I was like, "You won't, Mum. Don't worry. I'll be much sneakier next time."
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because I think about what we achieve when we punish hard is we make sure that they work harder at not getting caught.
Well, we do that. But what we also do, think about the cognitions. When somebody gets you in trouble, you go from being the aggressor or the instigator in a certain situation. I mean, you might have been in the wrong, but now that you're getting in trouble, now that you're being punished, you actually become the victim.
Yeah.
It happens in schools when we punish bullies and we actually make them victims. We punish the kid who did the inappropriate thing and we make them the victim. It works against what we're trying to achieve. What we want to achieve is perspective and empathy. We want to improve them as humans. And all we do is we make them self-centered, self-focused, and feel completely misunderstood and ignored.
Now, just it's now a good time to pause. knowing you and where you come from, because there's people now screaming at the radio because they think you're advocating for letting them get away with it.
That's right. We should just let kids do whatever they want. No, that's not what I'm saying.
And so it's very specific on the word punish.
Yes.
Is what you're against. But that's not about letting just a child do whatever so that they don't feel bad.
So what do we do if punishing's off the table? What do we do?
Well, just one more thing before I go to a solution. There's an acronym that I use all the time to emphasize what punishment does to our kids. We actually get into bed with our kids, BED. We get into bed, blame, excuse, and denial. So when we're punishing kids, and you would have seen this with your own kids, if you're going to get your kids in trouble and punish them, they blame everyone else and they blame you. They make up every excuse in the world and they deny that there's been a problem in the first place. That's what happens when we use punishment. It just undermines the whole thing. Now, I know I've said this to you many, many times before, but we've got to remember what discipline means. Discipline means
to teach, to teach, to guide, to instruct.
Yeah. Okay, it's working. Fantastic. Discipline means teach, guide, and instruct. It comes from the Latin disciplina, which means teach, guide, instruct. If our children do something that is not appropriate, our job is not to get mad at them and hurt them. That's what punishment is. Our job is to teach them, guide them, and instruct them, which means we need to engage in a conversation with them. We need to engage in perspective taking with them. It's not going to work if there's an audience. It's not going to work if they're very emotional or if we're very emotional. So if there's a drama going on that requires immediate intervention, we do need to intervene and we need to make sure that everybody's safe. Once that's taken care of, we set an appointment with our child because we're not quite ready to have a proper conversation or they're not. We say, we're going to have to discuss this a little bit later when I've calmed down or when you've calmed down. And we do whatever we need to do to make sure everyone's okay. And then 10 minutes later or 10 hours later, or even the next day, or that night on the edge of their bed, we sit with them and we say, we need to talk about what happened. We listen to them. We understand what was going on. You know, we need to see the full picture. We've had lots of conversations as we've had, you know, these chats where we recognise that as parents, we don't see everything that's going on. We need to slow down, understand what's happening in our kids' lives and what was going on for them. And then we need to ask them why they chose to do what they did and what they could have done better next time. Now, this is a far more effective discipline process. It's not quite as exciting. Other people don't get to see us being the parent, you know, because we don't look like we're getting angry at our kids. But our kids learn more. More than that, they learn that we are safe and they learn that we are there to protect their best interests, but also the interests of their siblings or the store owner down the street or the kid in the school playground. I'm not advocating for no limits. In fact, I'm advocating for very clear limits. But we set them with our kids rather than doing things to them.
One of the things that we've been dealing with our boys at the moment is a bit of lying. And a moment I experienced recently was that there was no reason for one of our sons to lie. Like, there was no anger, there was nothing big. But I realised the way I asked the question may easily have triggered I'm going to get into trouble for this.
Panicked response.
And so his automatic response was to just cover, to not tell me what the... Where I was like, no, you're not in trouble. We're going to talk about the fact that he said a word that we never really spent a whole lot of time on saying, don't say that. And so I just wanted to clarify. I asked him what he said because I wanted to see if I'd heard it right before I went and had this discussion. But he just went straight to, I need to protect myself. Oh, I don't know. I don't remember what I said. Oh, no, I didn't say that. But it really highlighted to me how his bad behaviour, lying, came out of the fact that he thought I was out to get him.
Right. And he became more selfish in that fear that he was going to get punished. When we punish our kids, we make them more selfish. That's really the essence of this. When we sit down and we have these proper conversations with them, when the fear is gone, they know they're not going to get, quote, unquote, in trouble, they become more open to learning. They become more open to having a good relationship with us, and the discipline actually sinks in. Not just that, but they become more empathic and concerned about the people that we want them to be concerned about.
So good. It's challenging because it's certainly much easier to be reactive as a parent. But I like this idea of actually that teaching, guiding and instructing and developing empathy in our children, specifically for me as a mum, where dad is not particularly empathic. I feel a lot of responsibility to voice that.
We should have this conversation.
Don't open up a can of worms like that.
Well, you know what, though? Again, I want to emphasise this about families with boys particularly. Research tells us that boys experience a drop in empathy around about the time that they go through puberty, 12, 13 or thereabouts. And so it becomes even more important that we're having these conversations to to draw that empathy back into their lives and help them to take the perspective of others at an age where neurologically and developmentally it's harder for them to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Dr. Justin Coulson, thanks so much for joining us in the studio and for talking about this big topic about punishing our kids, making them more selfish.
And we'll have this therapy session shortly.
Oh, no.
If you enjoy the podcast, please take a moment to rate it on iTunes. When you do that, it increases the visibility of the podcast and helps more people to find it. And if you're not a subscriber, jump onto Apple Podcasts and subscribe so that you can hear every episode as soon as it is uploaded. For more information on all of Dr. Justin Coulson's books, programs and podcasts, go to happyfamilies.com.au, or if you'd like to have Dr. Justin Coulson speak at your school or event, go to justincoulson.com.